So welcome everyone to this HLG session on summary and synthesis. I'd like to welcome our speakers who come from 3 different services. We've got Carly Cox-Dove, who is currently at the King's Fund, so she's currently my colleague at the King's Fund, but is going to be talking about the work that she did as part of the NSPCC. We've also got Shampa Sen, who is from King's College Hospital NHS Foundation Trust. And finally, we have Katie Nicholas, Emily Hopkins, Hannah Word, and Joe McCrossman from NHS England. So they're all going to be sharing their experiences with you. Please do pop any questions into the Q&A and do let Potenza and I if you're having any technical difficulties in the Q&A or chat. But let's get started because we want to give plenty of time to our speakers and also plenty of time to Q&A. So without further ado, let's welcome Carly and hear about her experiences at NSPCC.
Hello. Hi, I'm Carly, and as Hong An said,
I got here on time. They're now starting. I'm on my computer. It takes 5 minutes to get in and reach in.
Sorry about that.
So I'll start again. I'm Carly, and as Hong An said, I work with Hong An at the King's Fund. I've previously worked at the NSPCC library, which I'll be talking about, and at HarperCollins Publishers Archives. So synthesis and summary, it's key to any kind of informational professional role. So whether we call it that or not, it's sometimes a bit of a fancy name for something that we do anyway in a lot of cases, and it's also something that's useful in a variety of different types of library and for a variety of audiences. So today I'm just going to talk about ways that I've used synthesis and summary throughout my career, and specifically things that have generated positive user feedback in our libraries. I haven't made any slides or anything, so it's just kind of anecdotal stories. So I'll first talk about summary, which I think is one of the backbones of librarianship. Synthesis is really just kind of building on summary. So first of all, our catalogues. So often we'll just lift the ready-written abstract or introduction, which is fine. So why duplicate work if you don't need to? But we're still summarising because we'll check that text is fit for purpose and add keywords relevant to our collection. But summary can also be used in cataloguing to pull out the relevant facts, figures, and learning from an item. So this is useful if you've got a really specific audience, so perfect for NSPCC or the King's Fund, any kind of specialist collections. And sometimes you might want to explain why an item is included in your catalogue, and it might be that just one chapter is relevant to your audience and the title and general abstract doesn't convey that. So signposting in the catalogue record helps people see why they might be interested in that item. And sometimes you have to be a bit more creative in your summaries. So, for example, in publishing archives, you might have a straightforward summary of the story if it's a book, but the point of the publishing archive isn't to capture the essence of the story, it's to capture the essence of the physical objects. So you have to describe the physical book, including any artwork, and you're using those summary skills to accurately depict the physical items. So in those cases, it's really helpful to standardise the language and keywords used, because if somebody's describing a cover as dusky blush and you're searching for pink, it's going to create problems. So my point here is that although this type of summary, it might seem really straightforward or quite a boring job, but it's super important to do it thoughtfully and get it right for your audience. So without our catalogues and our thoughtfully prepared summaries, we wouldn't have libraries. So our summary skills are really important, and it's important that we use these to create catalogues that make sense for our users. And to do that, we have to understand our subject and understand how our users are searching for stuff. So we're also talking about synthesis today. So I was out of the profession for quite a few years having babies. So when I came back, synthesis was kind of a new one on me. I wasn't really sure what it was, but it sounded quite fancy. However, when I began to familiarise myself with it, I realised it's something that I've used throughout my librarianship career, and it can take different forms according to your audience. And to me, it's kind of what adds the sparkle to our work, so where we can really add value and prove our worth to our organisations and where we can be better than Google. So how can a specialist collection use synthesis along with summary to elevate their service? There's a number of ways that we have used it in the libraries that I've worked in. So the first thing that I would like to talk about is current awareness. So if your library produces a current awareness bulletin highlighting new reports and research, or even if you produce a new in the library alert yourself, you can add value by adding summary and synthesis, so by identifying reports that are going to be of particular interest to your audience and producing a tailored summary, either by simply summarising the report or adding synthesis and placing it within the context of the body of existing literature, or maybe explaining where it sits in terms of new legislation. So whatever's going to be useful to your audience. And you might think, where's the value in summarising a report? People can just read the executive summary, and they can, but where the library can provide value is knowing your audience and knowing your subject. So what authors pick out as being the most important message from the research isn't always what's going to be most interesting to your users. And you can pick out interesting statistics or findings that are going to be interesting to your audience, but might be missed otherwise. So busy social workers or medical frontline staff aren't going to have time to sit and read the whole report just in case there's anything valuable in it. So you can do it for them, disseminate it in a nice, easy to read knowledge package. And then if they want to read the whole report, they can. So what you're producing is a short but extremely valuable sort of summary with benefits. Something that, for example, a busy frontline worker, like a social worker or a nurse, can read in a few minutes, that will inform their practice and keep them up to date with any new research or legislation without bogging them down with too much information. So setting up what they need to know, and the important part is why they need to know it and how they can use it, why it's relevant to them. And this is where librarians can really prove their worth and be really useful. So at NSPCC, we produce these regularly for internal staff members and always have really good feedback, particularly from frontline staff who don't spend all day at a computer and don't get lots of time to read and assess and learn. So if we just present them with a report summary, they might skim it. But if we provide them with a synthesis with relevance to real life practice pulled out and bullet point it, they're going to be more likely to find it useful and therefore our service valuable. Another way we can combine our current awareness service with synthesis to provide extra value is by looking at themes. So is there something going on at the minute that's producing lots of news stories or reports or both that would be relevant to your audience? So for example, there's lots being published at the minute around the cost of living, and it's frequently in the news, but I mean, really, it could be anything. So if there's something that has relevance to your target audience, you could produce a themed evidence briefing, pulling out key literature, news stories, government policy, legislation, put it all together with an overview. And this is something that could be disseminated internally for your staff, or with a few tweaks, it could generate website content or blog content. So you can really make that piece of work for you. And it's worth the time. So you don't have to summarize everything individually, just use a synthesis to provide an overview, pull out themes, tie things together, make connections. That's the part that your users don't have time to do. And a really good example of this in practice that I've been using at the King's Fund is the research briefing series that produced by the House of Commons Library. So I'd recommend having a look at them. So I've talked about reports and research, but we shouldn't dismiss the value of just the news story. So keeping an eye on news stories that are relevant to your specialist area might also provide value. So I'm thinking particularly of when I worked at the NSPCC and we produced a weekly news alert called Casper, which included both news stories and reports and things, and everything was added to a database. And this meant that we could pull out historical news stories around certain topics. So I remember doing one looking at the topic of parents who kill their children and then commit suicide. So there weren't any official statistics to build a picture with, but we were able to pull out the news stories from the Casper database, track down the serious case reviews, and pull out any similarities across the cases. So, for example, in those cases, parents were usually divorced, it was acrimonious, etc. So it's all anecdotal, but synthesized, that can still add value and context for your users. So if you provide a current awareness service as part of your library service, there's lots of scope for finding ways to add value with summary and synthesis. Also, obviously, our literature searches on our systematic reviews. So again, we can think about these where we can add value and where we can make ourselves better than Google. So During my work in specialist collections, I've been lucky to work with researchers that really value their library. So if you're in a position to work closely with your users, you can add value by synthesizing search results rather than just providing a list of references. So obviously this list of references has value too, but going the extra mile will help librarians be seen as indispensable. And a way that to do this is if you're in discussion with the person you're doing the literature search for, you can ask, would it be valuable for you to pick out maybe the top 3 to 5 pieces of research or reports and provide a synthesis of those. And your choices might depend on which are the most robust studies or the most recent or that are on a really specific topic. And these types of discussion are something that will then help strengthen your relationship between yourself and your library and your users, and enable you to provide the most useful result for your user. I just want to touch quickly on one last thing, which came up during a course I attended on evidence synthesis run by SHAR, and that's presentation of your summary or synthesis. So it's something that I hadn't really considered before, and I find it really interesting. So Angie Rees at SHAR suggested being a bit creative with how you present your work. So sometimes it's going to be a straight up piece of text, that's fine. But what if an infographic works better, or a pie chart? And she recommended the Information is Beautiful website. And while I was aware of this site, I hadn't really put 2 and 2 together and thought it might be useful for inspiration of different ways to present our work. So we're currently working on building our synthesis offer at the King's Fund, and it's something that we'll definitely be taking into consideration when we do that. So hopefully I've covered the ways that I've used summary and synthesis throughout my career, and hopefully it's not been too much stating the obvious. I think synthesis and summary is something we all do naturally as part of our work as librarians, and it's just about kind of repackaging that in a way that highlights its value to everyone else and anticipating user needs rather than waiting to be asked in certain cases. So that's it from me. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Carly. There's loads to think about in there. And yeah, some really kind of interesting other ways to think about summary and synthesis, and different ways to present it as well. I've popped some links into the chat to some of the things that you mentioned, such as the House of Commons research briefings, and also the Information is Beautiful website. It would be really interesting to hear from others on the call if any of this chimes with them, whether they're doing anything interesting in terms of like visual presentation of search and summary as well, and just to share your practice. So thank you so much. Next up, we've got Shampa Sen, who is from King's College Hospital NHS Foundation Trust, and is going to be talking about how search, summary and synthesis all works together as a package in your service. So over to you.
Thank you. I'm just going to share my screen. Just give me a minute. It's being a little bit slow. I feel my laptop. I think that's fine. So hello everyone. My name is Shampa Sen, and I'm clinical support librarian in Princess Royal University Hospital. It was lovely to hear from my previous speaker how she is synthesizing and summarizing for the services she is providing. Yeah, it was a lot of take care from her, and I'm going to do research on that as well. So my perspective today, I'm just going to give you an example of how the literature search means, like in terms of literature search services, how I am doing the search, synthesizing and summarizing the literature search that someone is requesting me. So just to start with the search questions that I have got from Mary Jennings before. She was the pediatrician, pediatric dietitian over here, and then she was looking for something like if the children, if any children has type 1 diabetes, whether they are patients would like to engage themselves in any carbohydrate counting group and all. So that was the literature search I got. My next step was to in this literature search, so finding out some keywords that I can put into the databases. So what I got, this is the keyword I'm just going to show you at the moment. From the search question I have pointed out some of the keywords, for example, carb counting or diabetes type 1 children. So like that of keywords, and then I have placed all of these keywords in Cochrane as well. I have done the advanced search in the Cochrane to get a search strategy of that. So if you can see that the carbohydrate counting, there are different ways there are different synonyms of the carbohydrate counting. Here is the child, like how the child is called in different ways. In the Medline search strategy I got from Cochrane, and the type 1 diabetes also, you can see the Medlines, there are different ways I can put these keywords in when I am searching. And then I took the help of a knowledge hub as well, how the diabetes is called in different ways. So that was my first stage in terms of like the building of the search. And then like I put all the search strategies in the Ovid. So normally I have searched first in instance, I have searched in Ovid. And here, if I expand my search, just give me a second. So if I extend my search, like you can see, like all the keywords I put in my search strategy, and then I have combined with wherever it's the similar concept, I combined with, or wherever the different concepts. So first similar concept I combined with or operators, and at the end, as you know, that we are combining with the and operator. And then if I need any need to give them, means like the year limit is there, so I put the year limit, and then I put means like it came like 279 records over there. So the next step was to get all these results, like summarizing and how I will be producing the bibliography. So as she was looking for some key articles, not all of the articles, so among 300, so you can see like mostly 300 articles, so I have to screen all the article and then found out like which one could be the best for her. And then what I felt like that, like from here I made a workplace for me, means like over here, if I come over here at the top, you can see like your project work, and then you could save over here. So my project, whatever, when I was scrolling all of those articles and whatever I feel like it is very important, he could get help from there, and then I saved in my project. So here you can see like nearly from it was 270, and then I sorted out a 30 article. So I felt like that is very important. And here I could export all of these articles. So here you can export, like there are, when you come over here, you have different choices. Like you can take you can see like the default option you can see. So when I was providing a different synthesis, like summary of the result, I have tried different ways. First thing was like I used to transfer my result to the reference manager, means like RefWorks. And then from RefWorks, I used to get the synthesis, like the citation, like it could be MLA or it could be Harvard University style. But I didn't feel like that was very user friendly, or what I can say, like it was not that good in look wise to get the information from that format. So I have changed that, and I have now I am doing at the moment, sorry, I'm doing at the moment Microsoft Words. I'm producing the result like that way, and in a minute I'm just going to show you. And then here you can do the custom option as well. So here you can see I just made the template already, and you can do the new custom export as well. You can choose your file and you can save as a template, and then next when you are going to get the result, you are going to get like this field you have chosen according to that. So what the outcomes when I chose all of these fields and that results, how it came. So this is the bibliography. It came like after choosing all of those fields. Like this is the way it's coming. It's much more clearer. Yes, I have done little bit formatting over here. For example, the subject headings, the bullet points I have put, but it comes like this. It's much more clearer. Much means like it was. It looks good. It gives a good understanding of the research questions they are looking for. And at the end, I put the lip key images so that they can get the full text if they click that link. So this is the way I was producing the bibliography. And next step was like how I am emailing them. So I'm just going to show you the email template that I normally send them. So in the email template, I know they are more curious about the bibliography of the search they are looking for. But as a librarian, means like how to let them know that the efforts we are putting. So I felt like that this is the way you works most. For example, like I put first put as a thanks for literature search. I put the search question, sorry, search the keywords that I have used in my search strategy, the chosen databases I put, and then why, uh, little bit description about the midline, and then just I give them some information how I perform the search. And a bit means like this table I copy from with Medline, and then I'm just showing them. And even here also I'm mentioning them like what is the subject heading search, what is the keyword search, like that. So this is the way I'm producing the result and giving them. And here also I'm mentioning that if you click the lip key NHS, then you are going to get the full text of the article. If you have any question, if you didn't get any full text, just do reach out to us. Yes, it's not necessary to produce, or it's not necessary to give them like that way the result, but on it, if you are asking me, I prefer to do like that way, because that shows like how authentically, or how much time, how much effort I have taken to provide the results. And that gives us like the quality, high quality of the service that we are producing at the moment. And next is coming feedback. What are the feedbacks I am getting? So in terms of getting feedback, it's very difficult for everyone is very busy. It's very difficult to get in touch with them and then get the actual feedback. But I got some of the good feedback for my literature search that I'm going to show you at the moment. So there are two kind of feedbacks I have identified. Like one is direct and another one feedback. So someone is saying like it's taking time. Sorry, it's taking time to load my Word document. I don't know. Just give me a minute. So it's can't. Okay, so if it is taking a lot more time, I'm not going to take that. Just give me 1 minute if I could show. Otherwise I could talk as well. Yeah, the feedback. Let me come over here and to stop my screen. Yeah, in terms of feedback, they have someone has told me that it was a perfect thing that they were looking for, or someone has said me like it was very incredible for them to help. And one perfect not perfect, means like more in-depth feedback I got from our pharmacist department. So they were looking for some of the literature search that some of the MSc student will come up and they are looking for some of the project to give them. So she has given me good feedback, like the literature search they are looking for. It was perfect. It was on time. It was delivered on time, and then it was like they are happy. Like when the MSc students will come, they can give them the literature search to as a project. So that's the feedback at the moment I can give it to you as a means like summarizing, synthesizing what it means like the literature search I'm providing them. So yes, I'm just um, want to say thank you everyone for giving me the opportunity, and any question if you have, please do reach out to me. I'll be happy to help you guys. So thanks everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Shamba. Thank you so much for taking us through the process that you guys go through in your service, and just sharing kind of what you do, and also great to hear that the service is really valued by your users as well, and really speaks to that kind of value that Carly was talking about in her talk as well, about kind of proving that extra added value that we can all add for our services. So thank you so much. And finally, we're going to welcome a quad of speakers from NHS England. So we've got Katie, Emily, Hannah and Joe. You're already sharing your slides as well, which is very, very efficient. So
That's
yes,
way quicker than I was expecting.
I know.
At least working.
So over to you, and let's hear about your experience over at NHS England. Thank you.
So I'm Emily Hopkins, I'm the Knowledge Management Service Lead, and you'll also be hearing from Katie, Joe and Hannah in order of appearance, who are some of our knowledge specialists in the team. So we're here as, as you say, the majority of the knowledge management team, not the entire team, but the majority of us. So I think it's worth giving a little bit of context, first of all, that the slides are going to move on. So yeah, worth just giving a little bit of context that we are a knowledge management service. I don't want to say we're not a library, it's almost defining us by what we're not, but I think that's useful context to know that we are part of a national body, NHS England Workforce Training and Education. You might have previously known us as Health Education England. So actually as an organisation, we're not giving, we're not delivering healthcare. We are, as I say, a national body that's responsible for things like policy, strategy development, designing things like education programmes, working on new roles, that sort of thing. So it is a little bit different to a clinical setting, a clinical. Obviously a lot of our staff are healthcare professionals in the broadest sense, but we are a little bit different in that sense. And as I say, we are a KM team, so actually a lot of our objective is around mobilising evidence and organisational knowledge. So we also do things like facilitating knowledge sharing and that sort of thing as well, and you can see our objectives there. And actually the one at the bottom, last but not least, the use, and we support staff to use and apply evidence obtained from research and best practice is really the bit of our objectives that we're focusing on today. And we do that particular objective, we deliver that through literature searching and evidence summaries, and the summaries are the product we're talking about today, and also do things like develop a collection of evidence briefs as well. So it's one of a sort of number of products we offer. So as I say, a little bit of context there, that this is very much part of what our service was set up to do and deliver. This isn't something that we've just sort of started doing last week, and well, I was going to say, if you're impressed by it, we hope you're impressed by it. That sounds really big-headed. If you're looking at it thinking, oh well, how do we get into this, I think the answer is we've been doing it for a while and we've refined it. There's still absolutely room for improvement, of course, but yeah, I thought that was helpful just to give you a little bit of context. I think it's also worth saying as well that we offer a tiered offer, sort of different level steps. We do quite often do just work on the searching element and work with teams to do searches, but actually we offer, and as I say, the bit we're really focusing on today is the summary documents, whether that's a brief summary or a fuller, longer summary, which are written in response to a question, a particular question or a very specific topic. And we do have some other ways of presenting evidence as well, and we'll go through those. As I say, we offer it as part of our core offer. Use and apply evidence, as I say, from our objectives, and our roles are those of knowledge specialists. We work in that sort of knowledge and evidence partnership type role with our colleagues, which, and as Carly was saying, actually, you know, information professionals across the board, you know, it's a core skill that we're building on. We're not saying we're doing anything, you know, vastly different. I think it just is maybe presented in a slightly different way. So yeah, so that's why we offer it. And the summaries are used, again, I think this is worth understanding, bearing in mind that they are presenting the evidence, you know, at a bit of a glance, to help people understand some of the nuance. Obviously, some of our topics are can be a little bit woolly sometimes, or quite broad, and it can help people understand multiple sources, decide which bits to read in detail, which bits they really need to kind of dig down into and understand. And sometimes our project teams have multiple people. We're not saying every single person needs to read every single piece of evidence, you know, and you'll see some examples of that where the senior management just want that quick overview so they understand what their colleagues are talking about, because they're the ones really reading, you know, the full text of every article, and they just need to have that broader overview. And we think of it as helping people navigate the evidence. We're not drawing the conclusions for them. We're not making recommendations for them beyond kind of pointing them which bits to read. So we are very much that navigator, that evidence partner, that you know, that map of the evidence, rather than you know, stepping in and drawing those conclusions for them. And actually, sometimes we do just need to explain if there's a little bit of gap in the evidence. Sometimes the summary helps give that context as well. So there we go. Sorry, a bit of a ramble through, but we thought it was helpful to give you that little bit of perspective, because we know we're you know, maybe a little bit different to a lot of trust-based NHS services at least. So without further ado, I will hand you over to Katie to give you some examples, the bit you really want to see, the examples.
Right,
thank you.
So yeah, we thought it might be helpful to show you kind of what we mean by our different tiers offers. So I have put some examples in the slides, so they're just screenshots, so they might be a little bit small, but I'm assuming Hong An will share the slides with you, so you'll be able to zoom in and have a better look at what's in there. But just to give you a sense of the different levels, so the kind of the basic kind of level that we offer for staff is just to provide that search for them. So that, for our definition, is basically we'll produce a document, or usually a Word document type report, and we just list the retrieved results in a numbered table. We might organise the results a little bit, so we might say these are all reports, or these are journal articles, or we might group them by theme, but we wouldn't do much more than that. We would be sending them essentially a kind of a reference list. We might point out in the notes section which chapter's the most relevant, or which bit they might want to look at. We always put a search commentary in there, so that's usually just some feedback from the searcher about what they've done, or if they've got any comments around, oh, I limited it to the last 5 years because of the volume of results, or there's not much evidence here and they just want to point that out. So we would always include that as well, but that would kind of be the length of the detail, and we'd always include our search strategies and sources as well, but they're not getting much more than that. So you can see from the example here, it was just a search about compassionate leadership, and the requester just wanted some information to go away and read. So really a summary is not necessarily necessary in that instance. They just want some stuff that they can go and look at. The next kind of tier that we have is like what we call a brief summary. So the example on the slide is from a search that we did on gender pay gaps and ethnicity pay gaps. So you can see we do that same document with the full numbered list of retrieved results. They again might be organised in some way. But then on top of that, we also do the search commentary and all that sort of stuff. But then we also do like a search headlines section. So you can see it's got a couple of sections in it, one on each of the themes. And this one was Jaws, I think, actually. So you can see what she's done is she's teased out some of the key statistics from a report, or some of the headings. And it's quite small on the screen, but you'll see it's numbered, so that when they're reading that summary, they can then go through to the numbered result in the complete list and follow up further if that's something that's particularly of interest. So it's more than the list of results, but it's not that kind of huge summary. It's often just a couple of paragraphs or teasing out some key themes or publications. And this is another example just to give you a sense of the different ways we present. So you can see on the left hand side, so this was one of Hannah's, I think, actually. So you can see she's given some commentary about how the search went and what her thoughts as a searcher. And then over in the headings summary section, she's teased out some of the good practice. So this was a search about setting up an LGBTQIA+ staff network. So you can see she's bulleted some of the key areas of good practice, and again linked to the numbered results. So it's just making it a little bit easier for the searcher to see a map of the evidence. So rather than having to tease through all of the results themselves, you're kind of pointing them in the right direction of where they might look for these things. And then we would do on the next tier would be what we'd call like a longer summary. So I've not put a screenshot of a longer summary because they often are a couple of pages or a page at least. So what I've given you here is a contents page from the report. So it's the same document again with that numbered list of results. We've also got the search commentary again, explaining some of the facets of the search and everything. But this search in particular was an example about prescribing rights for medical associate professions, and you can see within the search summary there's sections on patient safety, there's sections on effectiveness. You can see it's really much more detailed, thematically arranged summary where we've gone through and teased out the different evidence elements that map to those themes, and you can see it's quite a substantial report. I think it was like 40 pages or something. That obviously includes all of the numbered list of results as well, but you can just see the different levels of report. But obviously this takes much longer than doing just a list of evidence. So those are kind of our kind of rough tiers, and it is sometimes it's a little bit blurry between what's a brief summary, what's a longer summary, but that's how we kind of attempt to organise it for ourselves. And then on top of that, we consider different ways of actually presenting that evidence to people. So it goes back to what Emily was saying before about, well, actually, what's the need for the different teams or the different individuals? So it might be that we've produced this really big, detailed, long summary, and that's really what's needed for instance, a working group, because they're going to go through that summary and really engage with the evidence. But this example was a way that we presented it to the steering group. So the steering group really didn't need all of the detail that's in the full report. So what they were given was this kind of grid of themes that emerged from the evidence, and that's kind of another way of representing the summary, always with the caveat that they can go away and read that complete report, follow up on the different pieces of evidence if they want to. But actually for this audience, that's not really what's required. They just need that kind of overview. So that's one way we've done it. And then this is another example from a different.
No, it's from the same.
Oh, sorry, it's just gone over the top. I thought it hadn't appeared. One other thing we did with this search was tease out some key diagrams. So they've got that grid, but then these are diagrams that appeared in the literature. So rather than asking them to go through all the different reports, within that presentation, they were given some diagrams that came from the literature, so they could see some of the models and also see some of the headlines. And that's just a simpler way of presenting that information. So we do that sometimes. We'll pull diagrams out, or we'll include visuals that are in the literature. So this is the second example. Sorry, it appeared differently on my screen. So this is another example of a long summary and the different ways that the summary was presented to different groups. So this was a really broad research question, and our colleague Elaine did this one, and it was a really big piece of work for her. And the topic was all about the impact of animation on adult online learning. So she did a really in-depth search. She did a really substantial summary document listing all of those themes and breaking it down and including the full list of results. But then she was asked to present on that search to a much broader group of people within the technology enhanced learning team. So what she did, she took that summary and created some presentation slides that just went through some of the very snippet key headings from the summary. Again, with the caveat that people can go away and follow up on the full report, follow up on the longer pieces of evidence. So those are just to show you how it can be tiered, but also within that, there's different ways that you can present the summary information to different audiences as well. So very quickly, I suppose we're preempting the question of how do we decide which tier that people get or what's offered. So really it depends on lots of different things. So it might be a capacity thing, like how much time have we got, or balanced with the priority of the request. It depends on the ask. So some asks really don't need a summary. It's not necessary, whereas other ones, if it's, for instance, something about patient care and they need headlines for the board or something like that, then it makes much more sense to prioritise that and give that a summary. How much time we've got, the summaries obviously take much longer than just finding the search results, which also takes quite a lot of time, as I'm sure you're all aware, but that takes even longer, so we've got to balance that out. And then what's appropriate as well. So if a team are going to write up a literature review, for instance, it's probably not appropriate that we go away and do a summary for them. We can find things for them, but actually they need to be engaging with that evidence. And that's always a caveat anyway, that they need to be considering the full results in the completeness, not just relying on the summary that we've given. So I'm going to hand over now to the others, and they're going to talk about some of the challenges and some of the tips that we've got around this.
Hello, so I'm Jo. I'm going to talk about some of the potential banana skins involved in the process. I feel like a lot of these are probably pretty universal, so hopefully you off wishing terrible things on you, you probably will be able to relate to quite a few of these. One of the oddest challenges is, has the person requesting the search asked the right question, or have they asked for what they actually want? And it does sound a bit daft, but sometimes people don't really know what they want until they've seen the results of the search that they've asked for, and then they realize that actually what they wanted was something else entirely. And this can be quite difficult to mitigate against, but you know, if the request is a bit on the vague side, you can always go back to the requester for clarification. And like in doing that, you can sort of get them to think about it a bit more and hopefully work out what they want without you having to do truckloads of work first. Time is always an issue, time or the lack thereof. Also, your own level of confidence and sometimes your level of subject knowledge, they can also impact time, because if you're not feeling particularly confident, you feel like you need to double check everything that you're doing, you're going to be working pretty slowly. And sometimes people don't appreciate how long a search can take, and also they don't appreciate that you might have other things to do, and they'll want a full summary yesterday. And that's when you kind of have to do a little bit of expectation management and a little bit of juggling, and maybe well, you can have this that's a bit rough and ready to start with, and then if you really want a full summary, you can have that, but in a few days. So yeah, it takes a little bit of negotiation at times. The joys of this include having far too many search results to wade through, or the opposite, far too few search results. So it feels like you're kind of scraping the barrel, and that can be okay sometimes, because sometimes finding nothing is the result in itself. But if there's thousands and thousands of results coming through, then that might be a sign that the search question is too broad, and that is usually a sign that you'll need a little chat with the requester to be like, hello, this is turning into an absolute beast. Are you sure you want to read all of this? And most of the time they'll see where it's going and they'll be like, absolutely not, no. And they'll give you some more limits for the search, which is always nice to reduce it a little bit. Full text access, sometimes things are available, sometimes things aren't available. That's the way it is. As Celine Dion once sang. Sometimes you'll come across an article that sounds like this is exactly what you're looking for, and then you won't be able to find even an abstract, never mind the full text, and it's a bit like someone's written a title and called it a day, and that is quite frustrating. But also you do kind of have to back yourself, and if it's out there, you'd have found it. And that can also impact the amount of time you have, because like, logically you can't search forever, but can be a bit like a dog with a bone sometimes with searching. You just want to keep going because it might be out there and you've got to keep trying to find it. Oh God. Yeah, and so finally then there's the fear that if you have pulled together a summary of everything that you found, are people just going to rely on the summary and not actually go through the list of search results themselves? And I think Katie mentioned this a little bit earlier, but like it's okay if some members of the project team do that, but not all of them, because someone really needs to be looking at the whole thing. But again, there's nothing you can really do about that. You can't stand over people and make them do things. And so this is where the little disclaimer can come in handy. And you can say, "Oh, we've done what we've done," but you're kind of the expert on this, and you're going to have to check it yourself. And if you don't do that, then that's kind of on you, on your own head be it. So that's it for challenges. I am going to hand over to Hannah for, I hope, tips.
Yeah, cool. All right. Hello, I'm Hannah. So yeah, I guess the top one is really is don't panic, probably the big one, and don't forget as well that you specialize in searching. And kind of when doing summaries, especially brief ones, it's best just to see it as an accessible map of the evidence that you've found. So it's more of a guide for them for the search that you've done. Sometimes it can be quite useful to chunk things up by themes or patterns that you might have encountered while you're searching. So subheadings can kind of be a friend here, and it might make things a bit more accessible for your users to chunk up that information as well. And taking time is quite important as well. It's better to have more time than not as much time. So it's probably ideal to sort of set realistic expectations for folks so they've got an idea of how long it's going to take you. And that could depend entirely on the subject matter and what's out there to start with. It might be helpful to encourage some users to read through all of the results and not just necessarily rely on the summary. But at the end of the day, they're the experts in their subject fields, and they will probably know what they're looking for anyway. So, you know, and if kind of used appropriately, generative AI can be pretty useful as well, which kind of leads us on to the next bit. So choosing the right tool for the right job can be quite important. A lot of these various tools which I've got listed here will allow you to upload things like RefWorks bibliographies. And tools like GPT 3.5 and Bard are quite good at rewording any paragraphs that you might have as well. If you do upload sort of Word documents or bibliographies, it might be beneficial not to ask these tools to summarize the document because it might not necessarily draw out the key information that you're after. So it might be better to sort of think of questions to ask about the search itself. So if there are any sort of themes that you want to draw information out of, it can be quite good to do it that way. And of course, it's important not to include any identifiable information within these documents, you know, when you're uploading them, because you never know. And of course, avoid paywalled material as well. It's good to be aware of the biases. So some tools will cherry pick positive information and leave out some negative things in searches. So for example, if you've got like a search comparing two different medications, the tools might generate a response around how great they are, but might necessarily leave out some things like side effects and things like that. So that key detail can be quite important to have in a summary, so be aware of that. It might also be useful to prompt them to use UK English as part of their response, because often these tools are US English by default, and it can be quite difficult to kind of pick out all of the Zs and stuff like that. And I suppose most importantly as well is do make sure to thoroughly check these responses and to reference the sources appropriately, because the chances are these tools won't necessarily do that. And it will also give you the opportunity again to double check and triple check before sending out. At the end of the day, the summary is kind of your responsibility. So bear that in mind. And I think that's that.
Thank you so much, NHS England team. That was really interesting, and also really interesting to hear how people are starting to use generative AI in these kind of things as well. I know that other places are starting to look at this too. I can see a couple of hands up already for questions. We've got a couple of questions in the chat, then I'll come to someone who's got their hand up, but there have been a couple of questions about time. So yeah, any information that any of you can kind of share, not just the folk at NHS England, but also Carly and Champa, on the time it takes to produce a summary or a synthesis. I think people would really find that really useful to hear about.
I suppose it depends. I know that's not a helpful answer at all, is it? But it does depend, and that's one of the reasons we've got the distinction between the brief summary and the full summary or the longer summary. Sometimes, you know, you just don't have, I wouldn't say days and days to spend on things, but sometimes you do have to be a little bit pragmatic. I mean, with some of our topic, and I suppose it is sort of topic knowledge as well. You know, I think I don't know if others will agree with me. Maybe you get faster as you get to know topics a little bit more. Not to say you you know, you take shortcuts and so on, but you become more familiar with topics. I think some of our briefer summaries are maybe 5-6 hours, is that fair? Yeah. And then, you know, we're really doing a, you know, super duper long one for a big project. It can be a day, maybe 2 days, but that would be for a really big project. You know, we're not doing that every week for everybody who asks. So does that help? And sometimes, you know, that's part of the kind of conversation as to, well, actually we've got this enormous project coming up in a couple of months' time, so we can build in the time, whereas actually we just need something quickly for, you know, next Friday. You know, that it, obviously accordingly it's how much time you can spend on it. So yeah, does that help?
That's very helpful, thank you. Champa and Carly, do you have anything to add to that in terms of thinking about the amount of time you spend on this kind of service?
For me, is there are different times, means like the searching means like I always count the time, like how much I'm spending on that. So searching, depending on the search, it takes 2 to 3 hours, and how in depth I need to search. And then as I showed, like as a part of the service, if the requester is requesting couple of articles, like 10 to 20 articles, then I need to screen through all of the, means like to find out which one is important for them. So that takes most part. And as I showed, like taking the bibliography is just, I have the template already make ready, so it don't take that much of time. If you want to do a little bit formatting, that's fine. If you don't want, that's absolutely fine. It because it's the way, means like that the Word documents look good. And email template, you can see like that the template is already ready made, and then I just change how did I perform the search, and then I just copy and paste a table from the Ovid. So synthesis also takes like 1.5 hours or 2 hours, like that. So you can imagine, like depending on how much time you have, you can spend on that. Yeah.
Thank you, Champa. And I think this is one partially for the NHS England team, but I think probably applicable for all of our speakers, which is you talked a little bit about kind of doing some work for kind of things like working groups. Do you kind of take part more widely in those working groups? Or do you just kind of present the kind of results like at the end for the group? So yeah, are you kind of more involved with these projects or these teams when you're doing something a bit more involved like summary or synthesis?
Again, sorry, I'll come because I think that was in relation to the slide with the grid on it, which was something I was involved in. Sorry, it's me answering all the questions. I'll shut up in a minute. I think the answer for that one was yes, I was a little bit involved in that early on. So joined the group early on to find out what they were setting out to do, and then came back later on to present. And that was quite a high profile project. Again, that's probably a sort of a bigger example of, you know, quite a high profile project, a long running piece of work with multiple people involved and so on. So actually there's always a little bit of negotiation as to how much is it appropriate to be involved in this. And again, if it's something super duper high profile, you know, and we've got enough notice and time and so on to book it in, then yes, we would be involved. And actually that in itself, you know, sitting in on conversations actually gives you a better idea of the search, you know, the search question and so on. It gives you that additional context. But again, pragmatically, we wouldn't do that for every single one. So it would only be sort of on request by, you know, higher profile pieces of work. With other ones, we might just be, I don't know if others have got examples, if you chip in with an example, but you know, you might have a conversation with the project team or something like that, rather than be, you know, going to lots and lots of meetings. You would still be involved to some extent, but to give you that context and be able to do a better job at the end of it, but you wouldn't necessarily be part of a, you know, a working group or a steering group for the entirety of the piece of work. So yeah, so it's a little bit, it depends. Sorry. For sure.
Thank you, that's really helpful. Shampoo Kai, have you got anything to add to that from kind of your experience of carrying out these more kind of involved summaries or synthesis? Shampoo, you're on mute.
Yeah, I just saw one question, interesting one, because we all, I think, we are learning AI or generative AI like that. I haven't used, just to say you that I haven't used a ChatGPT for the summarizing, but one thing I have used of ChatGPT as promoting my training. So it's like, means I have used more than 10-15 times ChatGPT for promoting the services, and it came so really good, because from the email I have sent and the responses I get, like almost every time 36-40 people booking to my course. So yes, I'm trying to input, means like use more generative AI and how I can promote and improve my service, but definitely it will be a list in my bucket. Like, I'm just going to try synthesizing and summarizing, like how AI produce. So that will be my next step.
Brilliant, thank you. And just I'm going to try and squeeze in a quick one before we finish. But when you're putting together a summary or synthesis, do you tend to kind of read the whole thing that you're looking at, or do you also only look at the abstract? What do you use to kind of pick up that information that you need?
It's another, it depends, I'm afraid. I think if you can see from the abstract kind of enough information about that paper or that piece of research, it's not always necessary, I don't think, to tease out, like, you would hope that the researchers have teased out their own kind of key findings and things like that. You'll know from experience that sometimes the abstract is maybe one sentence and the title looks really impressive and accurate, but actually you need a bit more to see if it's good to include, or you need a little bit more so you can actually see what some of the findings are, or dig a little bit deeper. So probably I would say I definitely do request some full text when I'm doing summaries. I'll not speak for everybody, this is just personally. I often end up requesting a few, I would say, just to make sure I've got that information. But on the whole, I'd say the bulk of it is taken from the abstract or the executive summary or similar. But it really does depend how much, or if you've got concerns about the abstract, you know, if your little spidey senses are going off and you think there's something that doesn't quite add up, then you might request a full text and have a little bit of a further look. So that's how I approach it anyway. Because I think if you start getting into the realms of requesting every single paper, for me, that tips over into a much more substantial, whatever you want to call it, a synthesis or something much bigger. So that's my personal kind of boundary with it.
Yeah, an evidence review or something.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah, for me, obviously, I look the abstract, and I look the conclusion as well. And then, if I feel like that the abstract is really matching to the research questions, then I just look the mesh subject heading, the keywords, whether the keywords I have chosen, whether that is matching exactly with the keywords, means like mesh keywords and all. And then from that point of time, and even the keywords will be highlighted in a midline or wherever you are search, so that giving me an idea, okay, so this is the one that could be relevant to the search, because I'm not the expert, but I need to take a call, like how I will give them the best service that they are looking for. So this is the way I figure out this article could be relevant or useful for them. Yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, everyone. I'm afraid we've run out of time, and I'm sure people have got plenty more questions. If you do, then feel free to get in touch with us and we can kind of pass on your questions. We'll be sharing the slides to everyone who signed up, and also the recording if you've missed any of this. But in the meantime, could you please share your appreciation and gratitude to our wonderful speakers for being so generous with their time and sharing all their experience, insight and knowledge. Thank you so much for coming along today. Please let us know how you find our events. We're starting to think about what we're kind of going to be offering next year. So tell us what worked, what didn't work, what else you might want to see from us. And it seems like this topic has been really useful and interesting to people. So if you'd like something more around like the skills involved in summary and synthesis rather than kind of hearing about the case studies, then do let us know. It is something that we might consider in future. But in the meantime, thank you everyone. Have a good day, and thank you again to our wonderful speakers. Thank you.